Now, as we see this cold front move through, we are also going to see very large swells develop behind that system from Wednesday. That's also going to combine with some elevated tide levels, so the evening high tide is likely to be up near the highest astronomical tide. What this means is that we could be seeing some local inundation around the high tide for those really low-lying coastal areas through the middle part of the week. Last but not least, we are expecting very cool temperatures to arrive with this cold change, so it's likely that we'll see snow on the alpine area and potentially even some blizzard conditions on the alpine peaks. That's going to be more so during Monday and Tuesday. But with those really strong winds, we are going to see a high degree of wind chill. So during the day, even though temperature might be saying it's about 15 to 20 degrees, it's going to feel more like 10 degrees. So very cold, very windy conditions. And at the moment, we are seeing that shift from the rain and the flood situation that we've been experiencing over the last week to very windy conditions. We are going to be seeing a few showers and maybe even the chance of some storms with this system as it comes through. We're still assessing what that's going to mean for some of the river catchments. At this stage, it looks likely that it's not going to produce renewed rises, but that's still a watch point and we're monitoring conditions as we see that system move through. So thank you. I'll pass the look back.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Are there any questions?
Well, do you mind while it's fresh in my mind with the Bureau, that what you just mentioned there in terms of possibility of more rain, is one of the things you're assessing we're seeing the spill from the Warragamba at the moment. Are you looking at that in terms of the spill in combination with more rain?
So at this stage for the Hawkesbury Nepean River Valley with the spill from the Warragamba Dam, at the moment we're expecting those river levels to remain below the minor flood level. What we're more looking at is further north through parts of the Hunter, where it's perhaps a little bit more likely that we see some of those rainfall totals, whether we see some of the flooding sort of be prolonged a little bit or remain somewhere near that minor flood level. So it's a watch point at this stage, and we're not going to sort of know more until perhaps tomorrow as to what some of those rainfall forecasts are going to be and what that means for those river systems. But at this stage, we're still seeing and expecting those river systems to recede.
Question for the Commissioner. So you mentioned, was it 218 or 280 incidents in the last 24 hours?
328 incidents.
Sorry, 328.
28 incidents in the last 24 hours, that's correct.
Yes, and when we talk about these areas, which areas are specifically still at the highest risk now, presumably where most of the rescue requests are coming from?
Yes, so what we're seeing in terms of the flood rescues are predominantly through smaller road networks in terms of where people are trying to get back into their home or get back into their community that is not ready to get back into fundamentally. All of these roads are closed for a reason. Even if you can't see floodwaters, the road's closed because it still needs to be assessed. Again, obviously there will be, when it's impacted by the transport networks impacted by significant floodwaters, we need to make sure that the road is safe to before we actually open it. Some of these areas are open to emergency services access for resupply purposes and for personnel, so you may see people coming and going, but that doesn't mean you can drive through yet. But these areas range from, again, really from Maitland right through to Kempsey. Kempsey itself, for example, still has significant floodwaters in the CBD. It is receding, but we're not quite there yet in the terms of being able to actually allow community members back in. And as soon as we can, we'll certainly be letting people get back in. We're not about keeping people out. This is fundamentally about getting communities back into their homes, back into their commercial places, so they can clean up and we can help them clean up.
There seemed to be, in your comments yesterday and again today, a level of frustration with what people may be trying to do and therefore potentially putting your people at risk, rescuing them. Is that frustrated with this?
There's certainly no, I'm not frustrated with anyone in terms of community mobilisation. Has been amazing right throughout this incident, from during the very active, we've seen neighbours helping neighbours, rescuing neighbours in many cases. That is a wonderful, amazing thing of our very resilient communities, and our emergency services in every colour are part of those local communities. It's the great part of our model and the great part of our culture and our community resilience. If I'm frustrated, it's frustrated about people not listening to the messaging around driving into floodwaters. Doesn't matter how I message it, people continue to drive into flood waters. Myself, like so many hundreds of other people, families, have experienced the tragedy of people dying associated with driving into floodwaters, that could be prevented. And so if there's a point of frustration, it's that aspect of it. There's always circumstances to any flood rescue component of it, but certainly I can only applaud the communities in terms of the work that they've been doing. They continue to do. They're very tired, but they're very, very focused, and we've seen that. We'll continue to see that.
But the driving the floodwaters thing, it seems to me, becomes even more likely and more possible as people see the potential of getting back into their homes.
Yes.
You've indicated that you understand that people want to do that, but it does elevate the potential for them to take risks in trying to do that.
It's, there is always this risk, and this is why for the community and from our emergency services workers, and for me personally, what drives any of my decision making is around safety. Safety of the community, safety of my personnel, and safety of other emergency service personnel, and that's why that messaging will always remain there. There will always be circumstances where people might get trapped in floodwaters, but safety is the primary component of that. The public messaging, and I appreciate all media outlets in every form, and even localised forms, the door knocks, the multiple different avenues around public messaging and warnings, that is great to have. What you're hopefully hearing from us is that in many parts it's still remaining very active. We've got winds still coming. That messaging come through these sorts of avenues, as well as local avenues, as well as things like the Hazards Near Me app. So if people are unsure or feel like they're unsafe, that's the time to take action and remain informed.
Sounds like you've got the cavalry literally coming from around the country and overseas. Is that now ahead of the winds that you're talking about? You had a very exhausting period for your people, and now you've got the winds coming. What do you say about that in regards to the resources that you think you might need?
Yeah, the additional resources are fundamentally for two areas. One is to supplement and support and relieve the very tired, fatigued emergency service workers that we have, the volunteers and the staff that are out and about. Again, most of those are living in those local communities, so they'll continue to be there and continue to beaver away, but we need to be cognisant of the support that they need. So part of that is for that. The other part is to make sure that we continue to have resourcing for any potential storm damages into next week or the later part of this week. And that's something that we will always do. It's the amazing part of our national frameworks, as well as right through to our local arrangements, where we're able to supplement and provide this surge support, and having people from New Zealand and the Commonwealth just adds to that ability to support the communities through this clean-up operation, which is going to take weeks, not days.
Commissioner, you seem to be saying that we're over the worst of it, but not out of the woods yet, obviously. But this was quite a severe event, and despite having this kind of backup coming in and all kinds of preparation, we still had deaths. Is there anything that could have been done, in your opinion, anything that was missing that could have prevented those deaths?
Yeah, my first comment would be in terms of the worst of it. I think I said this yesterday, where we're over the worst of it in the context of the weather. For the community that are now into the difficult part of the clean-up operations and getting back to their homes, I look at these things from a community perspective. For them, it's we're not out of the woods yet, would be my first comment. With respect to the tragedies that we've had, they will be investigated obviously through the appropriate processes. As an organisation, as the SES does, as all emergency services do, and as a collective, we will reassess and look at anything where we can do things better. I'm very comfortable with the fact that we've been well prepared, well resourced, and well focused and engaged with the local communities. These circumstances, we've had record floods, significant record floods beyond any previous records in many of these locations. But again, we will continue to look at, as we always do, in terms of where areas we can get better and better. That's our main aim, always to be better with the local community as well.
And with the winds that are coming, so where do you think you're going to be focusing your attention there? We've heard from the Bureau that the winds don't appear to be as big an issue up in that flood-hit area, so where are you going to be focusing your resources? And I guess you're looking at the potential for falling trees, aren't you, with the ground being so wet?
Yeah, with the winds, it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of one of our key areas of focus is the coastal areas. Very conscious that from earlier storms this year in many of these locations and even into northern parts of Sydney, we've had significant coastal erosion. So they're areas that will have available resources from the State Emergency Service. We've already been working with the local councils and other parts of government and the local community to make sure that those areas are firmed up as best we can, but that's one area that we're certainly looking for. The other aspect, which is a key focus for me, is the fact that we're into clean-up operations actively in these areas that have been flooded. And part of that clean-up operation is to making sure that the community and emergency services are safe in doing that. And so that's the other area. So again, we've got very strong connections with those local communities in terms of that messaging and making sure that if winds are coming into that area that we're well prepared for that. If we have to delay or slow up some of the clean-up operations, we will. We're not envisaging that at this stage. We've got councils already prepared in terms of, and EPA in terms of the cleaning of the debris that's out on curves. So we've got a pretty slick system, but we do need to have a focus on the safety as these winds come through later in the week.
And on the safety, what's the top safety message for people in those areas that are going to be affected by the winds with fallen branches and trees and such?
The message for the community in terms of the weather to come is remain vigilant in your local area. Keep an eye on the Hazards Near Me app. If you haven't downloaded, download it. If you need assistance, there's 132 500, or if there's emergency calls, there's the 000. They're the same consistent messages, but you can't beat local situational awareness. Yes, there's lots of information available, but be aware, be tuned in with your neighbours and those that are around you, as you already are, and as we'll continue to be working with you as well.
Can I just ask police, deal two left out. Can I, from a police perspective, what's the moving forward now? Are you scaling down? What are you looking at? Is it roads mainly?
Yeah, okay, so my role here realistically is the coordination of the operations centre here today. So realistically now we are concentrating on making sure they have the right resources and capability in the areas, whether it be rescue right through the clean-up process. We've been coordinating around the rapid damage assessments, which you've seen on the ground now. I think quickly over yesterday, hit the ground straight away, 500 assessments have been done. There's a number of staff right now on the ground, and those numbers will increase very quickly. So again, for us, it's about the coordination, and it's making sure that the capable resources are in the field.